Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse here, and I am back for kind of another E3 2021 wrap-up video, amongst a few other things. Yeah, today, Friday, has been another very busy day with a lot of stuff going on, a lot of announcements, a lot of events happening, and whatnot. It's only going to get crazier. I think tomorrow we'll have some stuff. There'll be a couple of conferences and everything, but Sunday is just going to be complete madness from like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning until probably 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's just going to be a pretty much a barrage of announcements and updates and events and all kinds of stuff. So before I go any further, I'm still kind of trying to figure out, I've been trying to research and look into things. I know a lot of people generally will co-stream or restream like E3 events and announcements and their live reactions. There's like everyone's doing it. I'm a little hazy on some of the like actual permissions on that, so I did some Google searches, wasn't super helpful. Reached out to Twitter to see if I can get an answer on that, but I think regardless, whatever I do stream, I think I'm going to maybe hold back on the archiving them on YouTube. So this is kind of a heads up. If you want to catch some of this announcement stuff live, I'm probably going to just let them be on Twitch for, whatever, if they get archived at all. Otherwise, if they disappear right away. But I probably won't be putting the conferences on YouTube itself. Instead, what I will probably do is not cover everything comprehensively, but I'm going to probably do some sort of post E3 video, and maybe look at some of what were my major highlights of the next 4 days or so. And then, like I said, it just gets crazier because then we have a whole bunch of demos coming out on the Microsoft event starting on the 15th. We got a Steam demo event festival sort of a thing coming up later this month. We got Microsoft, so there's a lot of stuff yet to go. So yeah, it's like I really want to be able to stream all of these E3 events, and streaming them is probably one thing, but archiving them, it's looking like that's a little bit of a gray area. So even when I've done that a little bit for past years, or even the Guerrilla Collective, I'm debating taking that one down just because I'm not entirely sure. That being said, let's get right into the day that is Friday. June 11th. We have a whole bunch of games coming out today that are just kind of taunting me. We got Ratchet and Clank, we've got Ninja Gaiden, we've got Game Builder Garage from Nintendo. Very curious to see what the heck that is all about. And then I found out we have this whole Witch Haven 1 and 2 on Good Old Games. I tried to download the second one because that's the one I remember liking better. Only to discover for some reason it's not seeming to run on my computer. I run it, it launches a quick little thing, it goes full screen, goes black, and then boop, instantly stops and goes back to the desktop or whatever. So I don't know, maybe I'll wait for a patch, maybe I'll research it, but there's so many other things to play, I can't be too worried about it. And I think I'm also going to wait on more further word on Ninja Gaiden, especially if I look at the Steam version, because I've heard not very good things about the Switch version, and I've heard that the PC version is a pretty sloppy port as well, very unfortunately. And it is sort of sad because I've been hearing a fair bit of that with especially Japanese games getting ported to PC. So like Japanese developers, they're primarily, they've been a console focused, like Japanese games are typically more thought of as console based. And, yeah, there are some that are for PC. But when, especially with PC becoming more mainstream and everything the last several years now, we've seen some hit and miss ports. And to be fair, there are some hit and miss ports from Western developers too. Don't get me wrong. There's been some awful ports. Red Faction 2, anyone? But yeah, so I'm gonna wait on that. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna get this going, and then I'm gonna play some games tonight. So we'll see what happens. But today it was also day two of the XR Access Symposium. And this was a fun one because this was, we had a little, like a few minute intro overview sort of a thing in our main meeting. And then they had, probably a good 10, 8 to 10 breakout rooms that were kind of just trying to tackle all kinds of different topics relating to XR accessibility, and moreover, what can XR Access work on in the next year to try to push accessibility forward, to try to get some concrete real world either examples of projects that consumers can use, or get resources to platform developers and other developers so that they can use them and put it in their future projects. Any number of things, working with schools, colleges and high schools and colleges and things to make sure that, hey, not just for XR, but if you're doing any sort of technology, programming, coding, design, that accessibility isn't just an afterthought or not even mentioned at all, but that it is kind of another core principle, just like, not making sloppy code should be a focus of any kind of programming class. Adding accessibility should be just a core thing that you do, and that should be encouraged in these classes. And then reaching out to the disability community for testers, designers, people, consultants, anything like that. So again, they are looking for people who are interested in working with XR Access, working with developers, sharing their stories, giving feedback on existing things, all of that kind of stuff. Just go to xraccess.org. I joined the section. It was basically on creating kind of not a framework, but like a model, an accessibility model that could be used either at a platform level or that developers could access, maybe like a API that something like Unity or Unreal could have. And what would be a good idea to have in an accessibility model like that? And there was a lot of good conversation. I chimed in a few times and gave some thoughts and ideas and suggestions and all that kind of a thing. But it's a really tricky thing because I like what there's one guy who said, for any sort of user interface that is like a standard menu or, flat screen, even if it's in VR, like if you're looking at like a flat panel or window that has settings or that has menus, or, whether it's skill trees or, any number of things that you would see in a typical flat screen game, we already have frameworks and we already have sort of standards that kind of work for that sort of thing. So, don't reinvent the wheel. For those types of things, those are maybe some of the things that we should focus on first, because those are some of the lowest hanging fruit to tackle, because we already sort of know how to do it on a flat screen. And if a VR application uses that or an XR application uses that, then we can go ahead and apply similar types of things. We're already starting to see a lot of Ubisoft games, Microsoft, Sony, all these titles that have like text to speech and different font options and everything. So if we can just get that type of thing over into XR, that would be wonderful. And that would also solve a huge problem with a lot of your dashboard interfaces, because yes, they are virtual, but essentially a lot of these interfaces, at least what I've seen for the Oculus stuff, Oculus Home, yes, you're in a room, But as far as like the social, the store, the library, the settings, they're essentially just panels that are floating in midair. Like you have a floating, like a floating web page window or TV screen window, and it's just look at my YouTube web page right here. It's got like a grid of videos, and that's kind of how the store and your library works. You've got a snapshot of the title. Maybe you have one that's bigger because they're highlighting it or something, just like you do on any sort of flat screen storefront or anything like that, or library. So that would be wonderful if they could just apply some of that existing stuff and just make it work in VR. That would help. But then you have actual VR interaction. So we talked about, again, there was another person, I forget her name. I totally forgot her name. Sorry. But there was another person from Alchemy Labs, Job Simulator, Vacation Simulator. And, we were talking about specifically, like, well, if you're visual and given the, like, one sentence instruction that you get from the little job bot guy when you start the game, it's very intuitive. It's very easy to go, oh, I know what I need to do here, because the bot comes up and he's like, hey, grab a cartridge from the tray and pull the lever to begin, or whatever it says. So that makes sense visually, but as a blind user or even a very low vision user, if you didn't have some of that information that you needed, it would be, you're not just arrowing through a menu up, down, left, or right. You're physically picking up a cartridge from a drawer, and then you are putting it into this machine that's in front of you. You're snapping it in the cartridge slot, and then you are pulling a lever on the right, a big old lever, towards you in order to start whatever cartridge you have chosen, whatever job you've chosen. So, we really kind of got into, well, if you're in a virtual environment, how do you make that understandable? You maybe have to have some sort of like a tutorial message or a scene descriptor message of, like, if you need it, kind of like how you have an interactive or contextual help in, let's say, JAWS or something, where, like, at any time you can hit a command and it'll tell you, like, oh, you're in a dialog box and on a radio button. And so, and then it kind of tells you how you can interact with said control. And so maybe there's something similar if the environment is tagged with, every sort of object has a label, and, like, you point at it or you do something, and it tells you sort of what interactions are available. It's a lot more complicated. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because I could just do a whole video talking about different aspects of this. We did that for like an hour and a half, 2 hours today. So it's easy to do, but there's a ton of stuff to think about. But there was a lot of great conversation, and, like, not just that. It's like, how much is too much information, depending on the context. Sometimes you really want to get the information because maybe you're looking at something artistic and you want to understand, but at the same time you don't want a bunch of jibber jabber and text to speech and other things distracting you, because then it's not immersion. Then what's the point of having VR if all this extra information takes you out of the experience? And moreover, if you're in, like, a productivity setting or a social setting, you want efficiency. You want to get whatever job it is you're trying to accomplish. You want to get it done as quickly and easily and pain-free as possible. So all of those different types of things, do you want to take time to smell the roses, or do you need to just, boom, get in there and get things done? So yeah, there was a lot of really interesting conversations, and there's a few other sessions that I would have really liked to kind of been in on too, because they sounded really interesting. And thankfully, just like the sessions yesterday, I don't know when they're going to be up, but on XRXS's website, they are going to have these sessions recorded so people can go back and view the sessions that they didn't get to see. I don't know if that's going to be, I should have asked and I didn't think to. I don't know if that's just going to be for registered attendees or if that's going to be like a public facing. I could be, because I mentioned in yesterday's video that the yesterday's sessions were going to be archived on the website, but I didn't think, I didn't think to reason out or to ask whether it's just for registered attendees or if it's just going to be available to the public, like sometimes GDC talks are available to the public, something like that. So to be determined, I guess, would be the way to go. But yeah, today was a very, very nerdy and productive and very interesting day for XR Access. I had a good second day. So that's how we started the day. And then we have all kinds of stuff happening here. Excuse me. We have the Netflix event, which I didn't watch, but I caught a couple of the highlights just to kind of see what types of things they announced. And boy, are they getting into gaming. You know, I remember probably until the last few years, anytime some sort of game or series, or not game, like show, movie, or series would be made from a game, we would just cringe and it would be awful. Because, I mean, you know, you have like the Street Fighter, Double Dragon, those movies were, well, Street Fighter was one thing, but Double Dragon was just absolute awful. And then you had the Super Mario Brothers movies, which was some kind of weird fever dream that was, if it wasn't called Super Mario Brothers, it would have been just a weird sci-fi movie. But how they got Super Mario Brothers out of that is kind of beyond me. And then all the Ubi Bowl movies, and there's just loads of crap until, like, I think, honestly, Wreck-It Ralph was one of the first movies that, you know, it wasn't directly tied to a real video game, but I think that was one of my standouts is like, hey, you know what? A movie can actually, I mean, they had real video game characters in there like Q*bert and Zangief and stuff like that, but the main games that they were focused on were fictional for the movie. And it's like, oh, you know what? People can treat this with an actual bit of respect. I mean, the first Resident Evil movie actually wasn't terrible. It was interesting. They kind of went downhill after that, in my opinion. I quit watching after 2 or 3, but so there have been decent attempts. And, you know, some of the anime, like I remember the Street Fighter 2 anime movie, that wasn't too bad. Of course, Mortal Kombat and everything. But I'm kind of reminiscing here. But the point is, Netflix killed it with their Castlevania animated series, their anime that they just finished up their season 4 and the first series of Castlevania. Thankfully, we got announced, I don't know when it's going to be coming, but they're doing a new Castlevania series based on Richter Belmont. So yes, they have a lot more to tell, I guess, in the Castlevania universe, and if the first series is any indication, I am sold. I am totally in on that. We're getting, speaking of Resident Evil, we're getting, in July, a Resident Evil animated series, Infinite Darkness, and Albert Wesker is going to be some big old thing with that, I believe. We get a Dynasty Warriors series, which I've played a couple of games, but I've never beaten any of them, and I don't know how into this I will be or not, but, I'll give it a shot. It could be neat. I mean, half the fun of those games is just going around and slashing like 80,000 dudes. Then we got some really interesting stuff. Captain Laserhawk, which they're making an animated series, an anime of... Remember, I don't think I did a video for it, Far Cry Blood Dragon. They did this weird 80s spin-off from Far Cry 3, and it was this like neon 80s super cheesy but kind of great spin-off for the Far Cry series. And so they're doing an anime for that. That could be pretty interesting and entertaining. And then they're doing another Far Cry. All they did is give us a title, but there's another Far Cry series that is coming at some point in the future. I already mentioned Castlevania. Cuphead, everyone thought, oh man, that should be a cartoon or a series because the game just looks like an old TV, cartoon. Well, the good news is we're going to be getting a Cuphead series on Netflix if you're into that kind of thing. I will definitely check it out because the game looks really cool, but it's notoriously difficult, I've heard. And so I don't know that I would be good at it. I guess there's some War of Cybertron. They're doing some more Transformers stuff, so that's kind of going to be a thing. There's even a couple other Transformers that I started watching, and there was a short, I don't remember, they were like short episodes, but I tried watching one of them, and I just didn't like it. I didn't get into it. But, maybe it'll be good. League of Legends, that's another game series I just don't follow, but they're going to have a Netflix series for that. And, maybe that's something where I can, instead of playing the game, I can watch the series and get some of the cool story that way. I don't know if it's going to be a new story or based on existing lore or a story in the game. I don't know because I don't follow that franchise. Interestingly, Splinter Cell is getting an animated series. Now, this could be cool. I would love to see what this is going to be. All they did is show kind of a sneak peek. They just showed one picture of what Sam Fisher is going to look like. And the problem is I don't know who they're going to get to voice Sam Fisher. And I know they had a different voice later in the series, but the problem is I cannot imagine anybody other than Michael Ironside. He was just the coolest voice for Sam Fisher, and to me, that guy is just Sam Fisher. Mr. Ironside is Sam Fisher, in my humble opinion. So I hope they get somebody cool to do justice to him. But I am intrigued to see what that's going to be. But that probably won't be out for quite a while. And of course, they're continuing the Witcher series, which I still need to finish season 1. But there you go. So there we got Netflix event taken care of. Ign Expo. Now, I'm kind of glad I didn't stream this. I was busy doing a couple other things, but I had it on in the background. A lot of the trailers were pretty good, and there were some interesting games. But man, the forced banter that they would do in between everything was just cringeworthy. It was kind of bad. I kind of wish they would just stick to the let's do it, cut and dry. You get a few words in between, kind of the Nintendo Direct. I love the way they do it because they don't put a lot of, for the most part, at least the last few years, they don't put a lot of crap in between. They tell you a little bit more information, the release date, and yada yada. But yeah, there was some kind of cringy stuff in between. I'll just run through some of the games here that were interesting. So right before that, I saw they had a little quick developer dive for Kena, which is an upcoming PlayStation 4 and 5 game. They kind of made it made it sound like a combination between God of War, a little bit of Pikmin, and the Horizon games. So I mean, it looks really good. I do have some visual, I don't want to say concerns, but I'm kind of wondering with the detail of the environment, like how friendly the waypoint stuff is going to be for getting around that environment, because it does look good, but the combat looks fun, and it is definitely one I'm going to keep my eye on. And if I remember correctly, I think it's coming out in the next month or two, so we don't have to wait too long for it. That looked cool. This came out of nowhere for me. I didn't know about it anyway. Big Rumble Boxing and it's one based on the Rocky franchise and not Assassin's Creed, but on Creed. And the name of it and the style, it kind of reminds me of Ready to Rumble boxing. I wonder if that's where they got the Rumble from. I think it was a little hard to tell. Sometimes it looked like there was a little quick burst of action. It looked kind of first-person-y, but for the most part, it seemed kind of like a side-by-side, or, kind of a side view of the boxing. And, I don't know. I just kind of got a little bit of a Ready to Rumble vibe from it. So I'm kind of curious what that's going to be like. No release date, I think just coming soon. Skatebird is coming out in August. I think I might have taken a look at one of the demos on some stream in the past. It's kind of got this Tony Hawk vibe, but a bird skating through all these environments, and I'm definitely down for that, so we'll probably check that out at some point. We got some gameplay for Sifu. I remember seeing this at the Sony State of Play thing. And yeah, it's like a 3D brawler kind of a thing. And it looks pretty fun. I just hope that the gameplay translates better than every time we've had like a 3D brawler, like, 2D side-scrolling, like Streets of Rage, that works fine. But I just remember like some of the bad attempts for like like Final Fight. There was a couple 3D games attempts. There was a few of them that they sounded cool, and then they were bad. But then there was the Warriors. That was kind of a cool PS2 game, I think it was. That was 3D, and that turned out all right. So I really am genuinely hoping that this Sifu game, no release date, just said coming soon. But that is one I'm definitely intrigued about for the PS5. Wild West Dynasty. I don't quite know what was going on. That trailer was kind of bad. It was just a lot of crazy like montage stuff and no description, no anything like that, no voiceover. So I'm not entirely sure what that game is, but it might be a little bit hard to see. Ollie Ollie World. I played a little bit of the first one, haven't tried the second one. It's a 2D side-scrolling skateboarding game, and it is neat, but this one, everything is kind of, it's bright and colorful, which is good, but I think some of the objects and environments, everything is kind of, I don't want to say pastel, but it's kind of got this lighter, like low poly look to it, and I could see some of the stuff blending in together. Somewhat low contrast for some of these areas. So that's one that's sort of up in the air as to how playable I think it might be. But I like the concept. World War Z is getting another expansion, so that is coming up. I did a spotlight, and I think I did a stream on that too. So that was a game I really would like to get into a little bit more. I think I haven't quite finished all of the campaigns yet. Got through several of them, but I think I have a couple left. But that was kind of a cool game. I enjoyed that. Streets of Rage 4 is also getting a expansion, Mr. X, so there's going to be something with that. Bramble, I don't quite know what this game is. It looked, I think, kind of 2D, but then there's always this person was always just stabbing a dude, and I don't quite know what the whole spiel with all the stabbing was. But yeah, I mean, just, that was a weird one. I'm not quite sure what to think of that one yet. Unpacking. This is a isometric kind of just what it says it is. Like, you got these boxes, and I don't know the whole, like, what all the gameplay entails, but, like, you're unpacking these boxes and presumably putting things away, or I don't know if you have to put them in certain places, or if you're trying to, you got all these boxes and you need to arrange the room the way you want to, or given certain criteria. But I don't know, could be relaxing, could be hectic, could be anything in between, but yeah, it might be kind of interesting. They did do a short little dev video. I remember talking about 2 Point Campus yesterday, where that was just a trailer. This one, the developers actually talked for a minute or two about some of the gameplay, and I like the fact that, it's like college, but they're not concentrating on, you're not going to make, you're not going to have classes for like math and English and whatever. The one that they focused on instead was, they called it night school. But yes, it was a spin on, it's actually training how to be knights. So like you're learning teaching them how to use armor and weapon training and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of like a goofy twist on the whole college spiel. And man, let me tell you, if I had more room, if I lived in a house, I would totally get one or two of these. For the past couple of years, One Up has been making there are these One Up arcade cabinets. They're not full size. They're like, I don't know what, 1/3, 2/3 size or something. But they're these arcade cabinets, and they've made some really like old retro arcade games, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s ones. But they've done some 90s ones too. They have a Turtles in Time one. I want the Turtles in Time game. And the two they focus on was a Street Fighter one and a Turtles game. And I remember hearing somewhere, they didn't mention the arcade game, but I think it actually has the arcade game and Turtles in Time together. God, I don't know, I loved those games in the arcade growing up. And there's also been a rumor, it's not confirmed yet, but there's some rumblings that we might get the Simpsons one. If only I had the room, I'd have no clue where in the heck I would put an arcade cabinet, let alone more than one, in my apartment. Unless I got rid of a bunch more crap, I couldn't do it. But yeah, so if you're into arcade collecting, they seem like some really cool cabinets. And like I said, if I had the space, that would probably be another thing that would find its way to my place. So yeah, I really would love those. The Forgotten City. This is one that I really didn't even know about, but I saw a couple of video clips today. Kind of a first-person story-based exploration. I guess it was based on a mod for another game, and now they're bringing it like to its own standalone game and adding more to it and just making it more polished and whatnot. And they're trying to like recreate. Was it like ancient Rome, or I forget the setting of it, but it's they're really trying to kind of create the style and the feel of the location. But you got these characters. I saw a little gameplay clip where a guy tricked you into stealing this bow and replacing it with a fake, but then he locked you in. And then he locked you into the little room where it was, but there's a big old hornet's nest above you, and so shenanigans ensue, and you got to figure out how to get out. So it looks interesting, and it's coming next month if I recall correctly. So I might take a look at that. Smite, I don't really know a lot about that game, but I guess they're having a Stranger Things crossover, so that is happening. Splitgate, if I have heard of it, I don't remember, but it's a free-to-play game that was out on the PC for who knows how long, but I guess it's coming to console soon because they announced the console trailer here today. And it's kind of neat. It looks like an like a first-person shooter, arena shooter, but it's got these sort of portals that you kind of seem to zip through and come out different areas. So I don't know if you can place portals or if they're set in certain places, but it kind of looks like a neat combination. Especially if there's like a free-for-all mode. It's free to play. Maybe I'll check it out on Steam at some point. Oh, I don't know how to say this one. Inculluminati? Whatever. This one, it had this really hand-drawn style, and it was like this 2D thing, and it would have like it had a human hand drawing in characters, so it really, even though it's a different art style, I don't know if the gameplay style is going to be like 2D, like melee combat or whatever, but it was just really hand-drawn. But the overall, like, potential gave me a Comics Zone vibe. And I've always said that I would love, I mean, you know, if Sega's really looking at bringing back some of their older franchises, for God's sake, get some voice acting for the characters, but keep the text bubbles. Bring back Comic Zone. Make another one of those. Because, man, the things that you could do with just, and it wouldn't even have to be, super taxing technically, but like the things you could do pretty easily for a game like Comic Zone. So I'm not exactly sure what the gameplay is like for this Ink game, but I'm kind of curious. I'm going to keep an eye on it because anything that sort of reminds me of Comic Zone is A-okay with me. Audio Clash, Battle of the Bands. I'm not entirely sure what is going on in this game either. There was just a lot of neon and bright lights, and I don't quite know what the gameplay is. I just think that it might be a little bit hard to see with low vision, but I would have to really see some more just straight up gameplay footage to know. But, I mean, could be an interesting take. But again, I definitely have some visual reservations on that one. Blacktail. This one, I don't know exactly what kind of game it is, but it had this weird kind of dark, almost like a Hansel and Gretel sort of a thing, where like there's this witch or somebody that was, had this gingerbread house and there are these kids, and I don't quite know what's going on with that, but the premise intrigues me. Death's Gambit. I do own this on Steam. I think it was either in early access or something at one point, and I never got back around to it. So I checked. I have it on Steam, but they announced it coming to Switch. So it is a kind of a Metroidvania game. So it will be one that I kind of maybe want to check out because I would definitely be in the mood for a good Metroidvania style game again. So that was good. Tunic on July 15th on Xbox. We're going to be able to get a playable demo of it, and hopefully it's coming out in 2021. No actual release date, but this is a kind of that isometric Zelda-esque, Link to the Past style thing where you play this fox character. It's just a really cool, kind of got a Wind Waker vibe with the bright but kind of low poly art style. I'm digging the way it looks, and I definitely want to check it out. So hopefully, maybe I'll be able to do a video for the demo later this month. But that looks really good. Steel Rising. I don't know what the heck this is. It was just kind of a little teaser. Some kind of like alternate history thing, but like there's robots, and I don't really know what the heck is going on, but it looked dark and it looked pretty cool, so I'd like to know more. Unbound. This seems to be like a 2D thing. A couple little aspects of it gave me kind of a Limbo vibe, but not really in a way. I don't know if it's more of a platformer or more puzzle based, but it looked kind of neat. Broken Pieces. I don't remember what that one was. I just had it written down. Broken Pieces. We're going to have to skip that one because I don't recall. I don't remember what the heck that one was. Martha is Dead. That was a weird one. So there was this kid, and like her mom was reading her a story or something, but like, there's kind of got this animated thing with the story going on. Some guy killed his wife or lover, and then she like drowned her in the water, and then something about like ghosts, and then he got hung, and I don't know what the heck the game is going to be, but it was kind of grim and kind of intriguing, so we'll see. Haunted Space. Again, this one kind of looked, pretty action-y, but, in space. I'm not quite sure what the minute-to-minute gameplay is going to be like. So some of these were a little hard to tell exactly what the gameplay style would be. But, it looked kind of neat, but I don't know if it was one of the, I don't know if that one was really a game that I would necessarily be into. But hey, I have an open mind to check it out at some point. At least look at more gameplay footage and see. Chernobyl Light. This is a first-person shooter. At first, when they were showing it, I thought it was some sort of Stalker game. Kind of reminded me of the Stalker series. But this one could be interesting. Chernobyl Light. That is one that I will kind of keep an eye on potentially. Seems like a single-player, story-based, first-person shooter. I wouldn't really say retro shooter, but just more of a modern first-person shooter that looks kind of neat. And then Sony had this thing, kind of a teaser. I have no clue. Dolmen. It was like, I don't know, there was like a bunch of monsters and tentacle monsters and squishy sounds, and it was just a really weird thing. So no clue what that's going to be. So I'm assuming that's pretty far off, but there's your teaser trailer. And I hope to God this next game comes out here this year. I hope it can. It's been in development for so long. This 12 minutes. They did a little developer commentary on a little bit of it. And, you're playing... It's kind of like this murder mystery where you loop through this same 12 minutes over and over. And you try different paths. And it all sort of takes place in your... I don't know if it's a house or an apartment. But it takes place all in there, and there's your wife or whatever. She gets blamed for some murder, and the cop comes to the door, and then the story can progress in any number of ways. And based on what you learned from previous playthroughs, you might be able to do things differently, or you have knowledge of what's going to happen. So it's just a really, and it's an overhead, basically looking straight down bird's eye view of the apartment. So I'm very intrigued, especially just the way the story is going to be told. I'm very curious to see what this game is finally going to be like. Hopefully we'll get to play it sometime in 2021. And then there's another game. It looks kind of neat, but I'm not entirely sure what you all do in it. It's a little confusing because there's another game called Sable. Remember the audio RPG that is also coming, hopefully at some point in the fairly near future. But there's this third-person game also called Sable that looks intriguing. Looks like a lot of... Really, it seems like they were really focused on exploration. You're kind of jumping, climbing ledges, looking around. Not sure about how much combat or puzzle solving there is. I know I'm thinking there's for sure going to be puzzles, but again, kind of a animated art style. So what I find really interesting actually about a lot of the games that I've seen so far, the games are either mostly cross-platform, like PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, or there's nothing that really says like, oh, because right now would be the time, these new consoles launched last fall. And there's not many games, maybe we'll see on Sunday with Microsoft and Bethesda, but like, I don't see anything that is like, hey, this is gonna, this is the game, these are the games that are really gonna sell you our modern console. So, I have the PS5, and so the few games that take advantage of it, sure, cool. Especially if they're PlayStation exclusives, cool. But like a lot of these things are also coming to PC, and a lot of them, and this isn't a bad thing. I'm totally for, like I said before, I'm totally for stylized over realism. If you can get a good, graphical style and presentation, I'm all for that. It doesn't have to be photorealistic. I love things like Wind Waker or anything like that. So, But a lot of these things look like, they could easily be done on a current gen or past gen, however you want to look at it, machine, the Xbox One or PS4. And that's not a bad thing, especially with the chip shortages and no one can get their hands on these new machines. So even me trying to get an upgrade for my desktop, it's like, yes, I would like one. But especially with all the content that we're seeing at E3, I know Halo is going to be coming out later this year. Hopefully, that Dying Light 2 will be out, and that's going to have some pretty powerful looking graphics, pretty, ray tracing and whatnot. And there are definitely existing games that I would love to amp up with ray tracing and better performance. Maybe Cyberpunk would be actually more playable. But I was all pumped last year. I'm like, yeah, I want to get a new computer in 2021 and I'll have ray tracing and all that stuff. And hey, as long as this bad boy hangs in there, because, for most things that I do, my current tower works beautifully. Yeah, my video card is a few generations old now, but, I would like to get a machine with all SSDs and a 3080. That's where I'm shooting for. And I will do that eventually, but like I'm not really in as much of a hurry because we've got all these retro shooters that I'm interested in. We've got these remakes coming that I want to play. And then a lot of these games that are coming out, like I said, that we talked about on these E3 videos, are titles that I would think that my current machine, maybe I can't play it on Ultra or whatever, and I'm not playing games in 4K because I only have a 1080p monitor, so I'm not even trying to stretch the performance that way. My current rig will probably get me through the better part of this year. So like, hey, whenever I can find a system, I'm not like eagerly rushing out to try to get one. But whenever I can, I'll get one. But until then, hey, my current rig is working pretty great. So those are some of the games that were covered today. Like I said, with the weird streaming stuff, I don't know, exactly what will be allowed to co-stream. I know pretty much everybody co-streams the, big events like Ubisoft and Microsoft. So I'll probably for sure try and stream the Ubisoft and the Microsoft and Nintendo. Those three for sure. I'm not sure about, maybe the Square Enix one. I'm not sure about the, there's a Guerrilla Collective tomorrow morning. There's a few smaller ones on Monday. The Capcom's got one. There's a Back for Blood one on Sunday. There's the Future Games show. I think I did do that one last year. And then of course the PC Games show. So I don't know. I'll see what I hear on Twitter. And there'll be at least a couple streams this weekend, and then for sure kind of a sort of my picks. I'm not going to go through every conference because we'd be here forever and you guys would be bored out of your mind. But I will do kind of my highlights of, hey, this is what I really thought was cool from the next few days. And I'm hoping to hear, honestly, one of the things that I keep having in the back of my mind, we've seen a couple of these 2D beat-em-ups or 3D beat-em-ups. I want a release date for Shredder's Revenge. Yes, I haven't forgotten about that 2D brawler Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, Shredder's Revenge. A, I want it, and B, I want it to be good because it looks rad. So that is the plan. I will probably upload this tomorrow morning for you guys, so you'll have something to watch, and then tune in tomorrow where we will definitely check out the Ubisoft stream and see where things go from there. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, and then you'll find out where and when I'm going to be streaming. Twitch.tv/illegally cited is where we'll be doing so. And illegally-cited.com for all my other stuff. And then right here on YouTube. Like the video if you did. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, I will chat with you again later.